The Laughing Cavalier here, presenting to you another tale of these troubled times. Today, I present to you a quick preview of the next instalment in the Tudor Rant series, covering the 2003 Henry VIII miniseries. I have now edited and recorded all of the audio and some of the footage, but I still have a ways to go yet, so, in the meantime, here is about 7 minutes or so from the authenticity section that I have completed to give you an idea of what is to come. At the moment, I am predicting the rant will be about an hour long overall. In a few days, I should have completed an unscripted video about the other Boleyn girl, and then maybe either the next instalment in the Elizabeth R quick review series, or the whole of Tudor Rant 4 itself, whichever I get done first. And so, with that out of the way, let us have a look at this preview. The series, much like its production and casting, was about as consistent with its authenticity as a hyperactive toddler is with what it wants. We will first have a look at the costumes and other associated accoutrements. I must say that, for the most part, Henry's costumes were not too bad actually. They do look somewhat Tudor. Well, most of the time. And hell, he even has a codpiece of sorts. Well done. However, he is lacking a hat in most of his scenes, which is something that was a must for any Tudor gentleman, and the king especially, particularly if he was off riding or hunting, which this version of Henry does quite a bit. The outfits worn by the religious figures like Wolsey and Cranmer are also pretty well done, but then again, since that type of outfit is still worn today by many clergymen, they really could not go wrong with that. The rest of the gentlemen of the court, though, are a bit of an odd mixture. Cromwell, on the one hand, has the correct-looking hat and fur-lined cloaks, which are based off of the portraits we have of him. On the other hand, you get someone like the Duke of Norfolk, who looks like he's about to go off and join Sir Francis Drake for a quick raid on the Spanish treasure fleet, several decades in the future. The guards, though, have to be the worst. Remember that this is what the yeomen of the guard should look like during the course of these films, yet they go for the conquistador-style looking black leather combo. I mean, come on now. Even the Tudors got the guards' uniforms correct. It's not that hard, seeing as though the unit that guarded the king, the yeoman of the guard, still exists to this day, and wears a similar uniform to that worn back in Tudor times. Following on from that, the weird Buckingham Rebellion scene, other than being historically inaccurate in terms of the story, also makes no sense with its authenticity. The longbow was still very prevalent in England's armies, so why do the men all use crossbows? Yes, some men may have used them, but the longbow was one of Henry's favourites, confirmed by the many longbows that were found on the wreck of the Mary Rose. The way they all dress as well looks more medieval than Tudor. I mean, Henry here looks more like his ancestor Henry V, whilst Buckingham, wearing the wrong coat of arms mind you, looks like he's just returned from fighting William Wallace. In reality, this period would see men of high rank wearing fine suits of armour, many of which survive in the Tower of London, whilst the men preferred tunics and hats, with some helms, whilst the billhook and the longbow remained the go-to weapons in the English arsenal, with the odd pikeman here and there. Outfits were baggy, colourful, and would look great on screen. So why the hell do dramas persist in giving us 13th century knights and or black leather-clad, dull, and generic foot soldiers? Still, we have this weird thing where a lot of the random extras in the background of the court scenes have somewhat decent and accurate costumes, whereas the main characters generally do not. Methinks ITV probably borrowed or found some for the extras from prior productions, which were more accurate, and then designed new ones for the actors and caught a bit of the old Alexandra Burnitis. Well, at least it did not evolve into denim virus. I think the women's clothing has to be the most schizophrenic though. During this historical time period, women usually wore a hood or hat of some sort to cover their hair for reasons of modesty and possibly hygiene. The gable or English hood was very popular during Henry's reign, but from the 1520s onwards gave way to the French hood, and much later on, we see women wearing hats as well. The style of hood a woman would wear could also be seen as something of a political statement. For example, both Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard wore the latest French fashion in order to stand out at court and to impress the king. Anne was also very pro-French, having been at the French court for some years. Meanwhile, Jane Seymour wore the older gable hood as a sign that she was different from her predecessor Anne Boleyn, and forced her ladies-in-waiting to adopt the older style as well, to show how she was a traditional English queen. This goes completely out of the window with this series though. Jane Seymour wears a French hood for most of her scenes, which is contrary to her traditional character. Anne sometimes wears a sort of French hood thing, but leaves her hair down, and sometimes doesn't even wear a hood at all, which a woman would not do, as previously mentioned. Catherine Howard, though, seems to be the hardest done by, since she does not wear a single hood in this, and is often stuck in what looks like clothing you would wear to bed, not to walk around in during the daytime, and certainly not something you would wear to an execution in the middle of February. There is a reason why King Charles I asked for a second shirt to wear at his execution. Catherine of Aragon, though, wears this thing. Seriously, are you trying to make her look like a stereotypical Spaniard? I can't blame them for this too much, though, since, save for the 1970 and 72 portrayals, she's pretty much always portrayed as a dark-haired, olive-skinned Spaniard with black and red dresses and Spanish-looking hats. Could have been worse, though, I suppose. It is a good thing, though, that this production team decided to put time and effort into supporting Britain's tea and underpants industry by dipping the king's underwear in tea before a sex scene in order to make them look weathered. Yes, I know staining things with tea is a good way to make things look worn. The problem is, though, is that the king was the most important person in the kingdom, so you bet your pumpkin breeches he would have an army of servants to clean and or make undergarments for him. Not to mention that I did not see a single scene where he was wearing them, so what was the point of that? Hell, what sort of perverse things is he up to where his pants have to be that colour? The style of language used in these films does have to be one of its worst elements. The makers of this, when writing their script, decided it would be best not to have any cod Tudor language, by which they mean let us ignore the style of language used and instead have them speaking like they were in a soap drama. Now remember, Henry VIII was one of the most learned men in all Christendom. Meanwhile, what do we get in this series? Well...
Stop it! Stop it! I can hardly hear myself think! I cannot have you both in such disagreement!
Who's this one? Some pear-shaped trollop from the provinces, no doubt.
What have you done? We will have an army of sons. Come here. Be a woman to your man. The Queen promised me. She promised me sons. She has betrayed me. Get rid of her.
Hey, this got some laughs out of me. And his romantic words such as come and be a woman to your man and she is going to give me an army of sons really work well as great pickup lines. I can tell you. Did I mention I'm single, by the way? Unless anime waifus count, I suppose. Thank you for listening. This has been the Laughing Cavalier, wishing you a good day.